when we treat one person who's experienced trauma, we actually touch many people in the community and we make the whole community safer.
I do believe firmly that the Trauma Recovery Center is changing lives across this country at a time when we need it the most.
I really like the vision that we have of making sure that everyone has access to good care if they've been a victim of crime. That we understand the historical and systemic barriers to that, that we're doing something different to treat people and make people feel safe, and that we're using healing and recovery as a strategy for safety moving forward.
TRCs have the ability to change generations, break generational cycle of violence and victimization among survivors of crime. And that cycle can be removed, and communities and generations can start to thrive as a result of TRCs working survivors of crime.
We know that the most harmed by violence are also the most unserved with services. And this model, that's a huge tenet of this model, is to focus on the people that traditionally wouldn't come forward for services because of stigma, because of, poor experiences with law enforcement or government agencies or health services.
So the Trauma Recovery Center model was developed over a long period of time based on a trial and error method. It includes assertive outreach, which means we don't expect the person to come to us. We will go to see them. And that could be a home visit, or it could be to a homeless encampment, or it could be meeting them in the community. And the other thing we then begin doing is offering case management services. And case management services could include anything from finding safe housing, to providing childcare, to providing food and clothing. Whatever the victim needs, we try to get them those services. And we don't expect the victim to be running around to a lot of different agencies. We become the point of contact. We become the single point of contact where we coordinate all of those different services. And then importantly, we begin providing evidence-based mental health treatment.
The Trauma Recovery Center is a restorative space for survivors to heal and recover. It is a multidisciplinary team of professionals who just surround a survivor with the support that they need to be well. And that's what I see Trauma Recovery Centers as accomplishing, is just being that space where a survivor can go. They don't have to go anywhere else. They get the support that they actually need.
People who experience crime victimization have their life sometimes shattered in a moment. And that doesn't just affect them in that moment, it affects them moving forward. We know that using evidence-based strategies help people recover quicker. And we know that the kinds of supports that we give to help people with some of those safety net services like housing, food, clothing, transportation, really help people not further decline, so end up homeless or on public assistance or seeking services in emergency rooms or more expensive care, that we're helping to stabilize them so that their lives can continue. And that not only saves everyone dollars, but it saves that person the trauma of having to decline to the point where they have no capacity and then try to climb back up. That's a longer, harder, more expensive strategy. And here we can intervene and stabilize people. And the more we can help them rebuild their life as much as possible to the way that it was, or even better before this incident happened, the better they're going to be a citizen, to be a community member, to take care of their children, to be a part of helping other people, to contribute to, the society, and to thrive and have happiness and joy. And when we don't do that, we end up with communities that have layers and layers of trauma that never get healed. And then people are at more risk for future victimization, as well as more violence. And so this is really a violence intervention strategy, as well as a mental health strategy.
People that come to the TRC have been overlooked, have been afraid, have been stigmatized. And so because of the way that the TRC offers their services and literally opens their door to the community, and welcomes them in and says, this is a safe place, this is a non-judgmental place, this is a place where you can begin your healing journey, and we're going to be here to support you through that journey. The very offering and availability of a TRC in a community is literally life-changing and life-saving in some ways.
One particular client that I worked with, the place where we started, this was a situation where there was long-term domestic violence, and there were children in the home, and ultimately the client was able to get into shelter, and then transitional housing, and then into her own home. So now she's at a place where she's able to work, and she sees herself from a person who was diminished, was incompetent, was always upsetting people and making mistakes, to somebody who is competent and capable, who is a good parent, who is able to contribute to not just her work setting, but to her community. And she's now at a point where we're transitioning out, but her life is transformed in that process.
One of the things we ended up doing was a randomized treatment trial that demonstrated that the Trauma Recovery Center model is more effective than usual care. Usual care is when you give a survivor a referral to community mental health, and you hope that they make it there. So we were able to look at people randomized to TRC and people randomized to usual care.
We found that in the group randomized to TRC, 77% were able to get connected to services. Of the group that received usual care, only 34% made their way into victim services. Outcome research demonstrates that people who use TRC services experience a significant reduction in post-trauma symptoms. In this snapshot of over 1,300 UCSF TRC clients, 78% met criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder at service entry, and 73% met criteria for major depression. After 16 sessions of TRC, PTSD symptoms decreased by 46%. And depressive symptoms decreased by 47%. These outcomes have been replicated across TRCs that have been studied. In this comparison of depression and PTSD rates, 2 different TRCs demonstrate similar baseline rates of depression and PTSD among clients at intake, and almost identical reductions in depressive and PTSD symptoms for people who use their services. TRC clients also report improvements in overall quality of life and day-to-day functioning, and their self-ratings of services received.
We have a lot of work to do across the US to make this kind of resource available to more people so that we can help with healing and recovery. So the NATRC is an umbrella organization of all of the TRCs across the country. And we have a steering committee of leaders who have volunteered to help guide the direction, the vision, the goals of the TRCs and the organization itself. And then the big thing that I really love is that it's a learning community. So all the TRCs are slightly different. They follow the model, they follow the tenets of the model, they're striving for the same outcomes, but they're in different communities. So they adapt their work to those communities and both the challenges and the strengths of those communities. And then they share that with each other. And sometimes there's commonalities, or sometimes there's things that other TRCs haven't thought of, and they're able to learn from that. So the NATRC is helping to expand the model, to replicate it across the country, to support the organizations that are doing the work, and then to raise interest and information about what we're doing and how helpful it can be in communities for individuals, for families, for the entire community.
The Technical Assistance Program provides training, support, and consultation to new trauma recovery centers and to new staff at existing trauma recovery centers who are learning to implement this evidence-based model of care for working with survivors of violence and people who've lost a loved one to homicide. We orient new trauma recovery centers and staff to the 11 core elements of this model and also how they work together. And our goal in supporting programs' fidelity to this model is so that when a survivor goes to any trauma recovery center for help after being a victim of violence, that they'll get access to the full array, the comprehensive wraparound care and support that the Trauma Recovery Center model includes. And we also want to support new programs in being able to achieve the same kinds of positive and life-changing outcomes that have been demonstrated and replicated in trauma recovery centers across our network. We also have a lot of resources that we can share with new programs. So our UCSF TRC manual is available online as a free download, but we also have a whole TRC implementation guide that is a collection of resources from intake assessment tools to sample protocols and policies so that new programs don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can take these tools and adapt them to meet the work of their trauma recovery center. We believe it's important for programs to get access to technical assistance because we want them to succeed. We want to help them build capacity for offering these services in their communities. And we also know that people want to work with us because this is a resource they want to grow in their communities. We appreciate that people also come to this work with their existing strengths, their existing areas of expertise, and their existing knowledge of what their communities need. So there's room for us all to learn from each other as well, and to really partner in this work of growing this network of services.
You know, I think the beliefs that I might have changed the most was that healing is possible. I mean, like true healing is possible. Like we don't have to keep putting Band-Aids on things. Like we can actually help people to heal from the experience of trauma. And I think what has changed my beliefs is just having this model and watching people's lives change, and not just for the moment. Years later, like they come back, they call me and they let me know what they're doing and how they're doing. And so to watch individuals in such a short period of time, that's the main thing, right? To watch them blossom into new people, to watch their lives change. It is so rewarding to do this work.
Violence will continue. So we have to think about how do we prevent it, how do we interrupt it, and how do we treat it. And the trauma recovery centers are a model for all three of those. They're a cost-effective, manageable, evidence-based treatment model that allows communities to do something about the harm that's being caused, to take a step towards interrupting it, to take a step towards changing the outcomes of it.
Just seeing like trauma resiliency, people persevere, people endure and overcome and survive just horrendous events, really like has instilled in me this belief that no matter what someone goes through, there's hope.
Being able to see generational trauma and to really know that this model works has been very fulfilling, to be honest.
It's incredible. It's incredible to know that generations down the road are really going to be impacted in this wonderful way.